Did you know Barbara hides a really fascinating secret in her character stories? And it's the fact that while she primarily uses a catalyst in-game, she actually knows how to use a sword. Well, I say no loosely because she wasn't really good at it. When she was younger, she would always want to surpass Jean in even just one aspect, since she sees her sister as a paragon of success. However, and I quote, be it swordplay, her grades, or anything else, she couldn't compare. Even for someone as optimistic as her, she found herself to be upset and down. Hang in there, Barbara! This character is hiding a pretty sad secret in her character stories. Collei's story is one of the saddest tragedy in the entirety of Genshin because of how raw it's played out in the manga. Even Collei in-game states that she dreads remembering this part of her past. The manga happens a year before the main game, but did you know that Collei's in-game character story actually calls this part of her childhood, this traumatic, unfortunate part of her past, as weak, childish, and immature?
Gradually, I went from hating just the Fatui to hating everyone in the world. Thinking about it now, it was quite childish.
I just find it kind of sad that the way that she calls this reaction she has, this very valid anger that she has towards the people who have wronged her, as childish. Though, it's good to see that she is growing, I guess. Collei, please be kinder to yourself. Did you know that this character was first seen in the game as a male? Genshin has its fair shares of mistranslations, especially when it comes to the genders of certain characters. This is because of either purposeful concealment for future reveals, or just straight-up lack of pronouns mentioned in the Chinese versions. One of these examples is actually Arlecchino, who was first mentioned in the world quest, The Very Special Fortune Slip. This was one of the first mentions of the Arlecchino lore bits, and when she was formally mentioned in the earlier versions of the story, Ilian and Ephim called Arlecchino Lord Arlecchino. However, when Arlecchino was formally seen in the Senora funeral, the world quest was edited to say Lady Arlecchino instead. Let's just say that there were a bunch of theorizers, myself included, who found this really inconvenient since it took 1 to 2 months before they actually fixed it. You know what's a really fascinating duality in Genshin? Raiden A's most traumatic moment is when her sister died in Conria. And as an Archon and God present in the Cataclysm, she most likely knows the devastation caused by the monsters of the Abyss and whatever machines the Conrians created that even brought forth the Cataclysm. So imagine the strange irony that her magnum opus was actually created with Conrian techniques. The puppet-making techniques that Raiden A used to create Wander, and most likely also the Raiden Shogun puppet we know today, have Conrian roots, as stated in Wanderer's character story. What an interesting turn of fate, huh? Did you know that Wanderer keeps a pretty adorable secret? And it all has something to do with his hat. Or rather, the ultimate question of what is underneath that thing. Because the game is lying to you. What's supposed to be under his hat, or maybe he hasn't put it there yet, is a small doll that has white clothes, black hair, a waistband knotted into a butterfly, and a round tear. According to Wanderer's character profile, he learned how to make toys during his visit to the Treasure Street. There he met a kind fellow who taught him how to sew, and Wanderer practiced and practiced, until this little doll was finally complete, an imitation of the doll his old friend made that burnt down in the house during the cremation. Wanderer considers that if he put the doll in his hat, it would feel like having a travel companion, so just note that he has that somewhere on his person at all times. Subscribe for more Wanderer lore bits. These melons have a pretty sad role in Genshin's story. Lavender melons and the illness of the Tatarigami have a fascinating connection over the years, and one of the most prevalent is Wanderer's character story. When Wanderer's young friend was still sick, he would bring him melons, fruits, and water to drink, which proved to inevitably be fruitless considering the kid's affliction with the Tatarigami was too strong for just simple house care. But did you know that lavender melons were also used as a desperate attempt to cure the Tatarigami in the future? These are notes from the pharmacist's notebook. The pharmacist Yasumoto was supposed to help the people of Higi village, but he couldn't do anything about it. So as a form of self-deception, he would just give people lavender melon soup. So he ended up doing all of this just to make himself feel better as a coping mechanism. And Desperado reminds me of a certain puppet. Stupid question, but which came first in Genshin's universe? The game chess or the shape of the gnosis? Okay, this sounds weird, but characters like Aimiko and Beidou have referred to it as a chess piece, and Piero uses it in his game. Not to mention, other variations of chess exist in Genshin's universe, like Ningguang's own variation of it, and Ayato and Thoma playing shogi. Did the gods create the shape of the gnosis based on the game of chess, or did the people create the game chess based on the shape of the gnosis? Did humans just look at the statue of the Seven and wanted to make a game out of it? Like they saw the word freedom and Barbados' statue and were like, oh, this piece can move in any direction except L because Barbados doesn't take any L's. Or did humans create the shape and were the gods like, hey, that looks pretty cool? Have you ever noticed this about Fischl and Oz? Fischl's the only playable character that has a non-living living being conjured by her vision. Okay, I promise I'm not crazy, but Oz is a really fascinating outlier when it comes to familiar summoning characters because he isn't really like the rest. Amber's Baron Bunny is a doll that she makes. Xiangling's Goba and Itto's Ushi are separate entities that met Xiangling and Itto along the way. But Oz isn't like that. Oz manifested alongside of Fischl's vision, but he talks and acts like a separate person altogether. So why is that? Well, it's possible that Fischl is Oz. An Allegine's vision represents an ambition or a desire, and maybe Oz isn't just because Amy likes the book he's inspired from, but also because Oz is a representation of Amy's desire to be understood. He's her translator so she can be in character all the time, while having her meanings still be articulated, and when Amy comes out, Fischl's persona pushes over to Oz acting weird. Well, that's just a theory anyway. Venti is a character who has half-truths and secrets as a prevalent theme to his story. He has all sorts of skills like fabrication, illusion-making, storytelling, pilfering, and even forgery. Yep, Venti used to forge Zhongli's signature to play pranks at the DOR con. But that skill actually became an important asset that turned Mondstadt's history on its head. After 1,600 years of history, Mondstadt had fallen into the tyrannical rule of the aristocrats. But after Barbados returned, there was a famous treachery against the wind where the soldiers found a secret treaty between the aristocrats and the deity Rex Lapis. The soldiers feared that they would be slaves in a foreign land, and thus turned tail on the aristocracy. It wasn't until years later that historians would discover that the treaty was fake. Itto is actually the master of copium takes, and here's why. We know that Itto's a bit of a wild one when it comes to his day-to-day endeavors, and in his character details, did you know that Itto is a little offended if you say he's completely unemployed? Itto claims to be the first and greatest head of the Arataki gang, the responsibilities and duties of which he tried to explain to some Tenryo Commission officials when they came to him to investigate a rather harmless street brawl. Unfortunately, they interrupted him not 2 minutes into the explanation before marking him down as unemployed. But Itto argues that there's a lot that he does, like how Itto makes sure that he is working odd jobs for 1 day before taking 3 days off. As such, a more accurate designation should have been 3/4 unemployed. You'd think ships don't have their internal lore, but Kazuskara's lore outside of the game is wild. Kazuskara began all the way back before Inazuma when Kazuha was leaked around 1.4. And let me tell you, Genshin fans ran with it. One Inazuma short boy and the only other Inazuma short boy? Sign me up. But then, the theories started coming out and they came out wild. When Kazuha was leaked to have a friend from Inazuma, people started theorizing it was Scaramouche because of the mysterious bottled messages from Dragonspine. Then when this 2.2 image leaked a mysterious figure in the back that almost not really we were going insane was Scaramouche pre-Fatui. It even got to the point that when the name Goro was leaked, people assumed it was Scaramouche's real name. But honestly, everyone was just fine shipping this crack pair who never met before because they're not real people. That is, until the 2.6 lore dropped and the shippers went, wait a minute, that wasn't part of the plan. Nobody expected or even asked for actual Kazuskara connections in universe. From rare pair to being a pair with actual lore backing. Wild. While most animal characters have lost friends in the past, Heizou's friend was treated almost like a catalyst to him receiving his vision. It was during a festival that he met a friend who claimed to be from a wealthy merchant family. The friend brought him books and toys from other nations, but Heizou realized that his friend's clothes were always filthy, which isn't something that a rich merchant's son should have. Unfortunately, his friend immediately admitted to lying to him, and that the gifts were actually stolen. Heizou was furious and confused, and yelled that they weren't friends anymore. He threw away what was given to him except for a single green pebble, a rock that they fished out of a stream together. It wasn't until in the near future that Heizou would meet his friend again, bleeding out after a fight with a man who tried to steal his Mora purse. Heizou tried to save him, but it was too late. What was inside that purse, though, was the other pebble. It was here that he realized that what Heizou wants to fight against was the sins of the world, and perhaps by realizing this, instead of holding a pebble, he held a vision. Subscribe for more character lore bits.